All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today we have Wes Morford here with us, one of our instructors here at the Tech Academy, and they're going to be talking about how to code with games. So thank you for being here and take it away.
Alrighty, let me get that back there. Hi, everyone. My name is Wesley Morford. I'm an instructor here at the Tech Academy. Going to be leading a talk today on kind of getting into coding through games, kind of developing games, kind of working with those. Some of you guys might recognize me from feedback or phone calls as an instructor here. So good to see you guys here. Thank you also for joining me on this talk. Let's go and get going. Keep hearing some chimes. Good turnout today. All right, so let's go and dive in. So pretty much the scope of the talk we're going into is really just kind of we'll start with just talking about like kind of my journey into getting into coding after being exposed to tech my entire life as a kid. Playing DOS games, different things like that. First, few computers I worked with didn't have a GUI, no interface, and then from there, just kind of after being exposed. Playing around with games, coding, file systems and everything like that. Just kind of my journey into actually getting into more of the development role, into actually creating rather than just, tweaking and modifying here and there, actually getting into kind of working on my own projects and leading others on doing the same. So we'll go into a little bit about kind of the live projects we offer here at the Tech Academy for the game dev portion mainly, and just kind of some of the results that people have been able to make. It's been pretty fun. The definite highlight of my time at the Tech Academy is leading those projects there. But let's go and get into it. So we're just going to go over a little kind of brief summary of my kind of timeline, how I got into code. Some of the first things I did was just exposed to early DOS games, pre-Windows, VGA graphics, 16 colors on screen. Going to 256 was amazing as a child to be able to see that. Actual sound cards back when they were a thing as well. In that era, that's kind of where I entered in there. I got into kind of like knowing how to kind of get into typing and kind of file structures and actually able to run the files to start these games because most of the computers didn't have a user interface, so it was actually kind of like a command prompt, running different exe files, actually having to navigate to get Commander Keen running, number 4, best one obviously, on there. But yeah, that's kind of where I got started with that. Growing up, my dad definitely had a plethora of computers around. I used them, but games really was kind of the first time that like my input was actually affecting what was happening, and that's both like getting the games to run, and also kind of helped me learn to read and different kind of stuff there. Having older siblings helped, but entering cheat codes because I don't know, I was 5, 6, not really good at some of these games. So the one that stands out, there's one called like Glittering Prizes, which was impossible for 6-year-old me to spell, but that was for a one. I remember that one distinctly. And just being able to input something into different methods for the different games to actually do it, but kind of my input was actually affecting the game. That was kind of cool as a kid, and I really got a kick out of that. Going on from that, a lot of the games I grew up playing actually had included with them level editors, and in there their own event systems, variables, ways to track different elements and stuff like that. Got a real kick out of those because didn't really get into coding yet. That still seemed far-fetched. I remember my parents saying like, "Oh, we're reading a book on it," and there's this huge tome coming in, 7, 8 about that time. It's like that seemed impossibly daunting. But a level editor, graphics are made, everything was kind of there for me. Somewhat established event system, so I could actually have a little bit more complex versus just this guy go attack this guy. I could actually have different elements, different triggers at different events. That was a lot of fun getting into that point. That was about 7 or 8. Going on beyond that, as I got into maybe like 15, 16, had my own computer at that point. Games are getting a little bit more intense, 3D, different aspects like that. I got into actually modding games, which again was taking something that was already established, code and really graphics. For me, I tend to focus more on the back end kind of stuff there. I'm a little bit more comfortable with functionality versus getting a menu bar to line up perfectly or something like that. That kind of graphic design aspect, well, I do like to, I kind of go for a minimalist approach, kind of my kind of methods. It doesn't really kind of grab me as much, but that kind of functionality and kind of tweaking things, that's what I really enjoy. And that's what kind of modding games allowed me to do. Just taking a pre-existing engine or even game itself, modifying it to what I needed to do. A lot of times that's just like, custom characters or, names changing. A lot of times it's really just changing, like, being able to put your name or mod in a Lord of the Rings character or something that looks the same, but it says something different there. Fantastic. I got a real kick out of that. And then over time, getting more complex. Again, a lot of the games I really got into with that modding front was kind of more the Bethesda games, a few different ones there. Just to name a few, like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, because they actually had mod tools available, an interface that I'm able to go in, and it's pretty close to the tools they actually use for making the games. These are still things you're able to access if you ever download the available for free on the website. Really great support for that. And so those kind of environments, those games with like level editors and mod tools were fantastic for me because it has a pre-established point that's already made, already working. I know it works, and I can go there, mess it up, see what I did wrong, or see what was affected by my changes, and kind of refine from there. And that really helped me kind of get into a little bit more on the code aspect. Still not quite there, still not really building my own programs. Going on to that, there's a game called Gary's Mod, and that was written, and it's the source engine through Valve, which we won't really go too much into there now, but there's basically a front-end interface for it in Lua code, which is kind of like Python. It's really simple, a lot of text, just text file based. Kind of got into there a bit, kind of still doing the same thing. I also was tiptoeing into coding at this point, I would say. A lot of YouTube tutorials and different kind of getting into Python, basics of for loops, while loops, stuff like that. Trying my hand at Pygame, not really grasping it. Pygame is just a kind of a module that you're able to, or kind of like a framework that you can use with Python that will allow like graphics and different elements. Trying to really argue with myself, it's like, do I want to make a game that people can see, or should I just settle for text based because that's more what I'm comfortable with? Don't have to worry about graphics. I can just work on the back end. A lot of success with the text games that I definitely grew up with as well. Also, though, to the point, modding by this point, there's different games coming out, like Minecraft. I know was really big for a while. That's written in Java, and there's jar files in there. And there's a lot of really cool mods, modifications to the games that people had made, adding a lot of complexity to the game. Extra units, extra blocks, factory systems and whatnot. And that would involve downloading packs, unpacking a jar file, which is a Java kind of container, and then kind of loading stuff in, repackaging it. I got kind of good at that, and I actually had a bit of a racket going with a few of my friends because they really couldn't be bothered with it. They really wanted these mods, but they couldn't really figure out how to do it themselves. Really, all I was doing was just following along some forum posts and tutorials, maybe a couple of video files or videos on YouTube, and just kind of going from there and modifying them for my friends, getting the trivial fee of $5 at a time sometimes. But that was a lot of fun. It was really interesting to be the guy that they would come to for that. For computer issues as well. Heaven forbid, if you let someone know that you are good with computers, you will probably be asked probably by family members and friends a lot, as some of you probably know. But yeah, that was kind of my first foray into following on with tutorials, which, to be fair, when you go into coding, a lot of what you're going to be doing is going to be reading off documentation, changing the documentation examples, and kind of like slapping together whatever project assignment you're working on. So it's kind of similar to what I was doing there with the following tutorials to modify those jar files, and not even just jar files, but other any other, helping my friends kind of guide them through that process. But again, like I wasn't really kind of getting into that coding aspect for myself. It was taking what was already there and tweaking, and I feel I was getting more comfortable with code, editing files, different kind of stuff like that. I was able to read through actual like documents and .cs files and jar files and grasp somewhat what was going on there. That also, it's not on there as a slide there, but I also, for a while, didn't have a computer, but still was passionate about coding. So I actually went through a whole C++ free little course on my phone, which if you've ever coded C++ on a cheap Android, I'm sorry. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you. But that was interesting to do. C++ is a gnarly one to accomplish there because you really have to mess with memory locations and different kind of stuff there. Wonderful app. I kind of went through there, but still wasn't, by the time I finished, it's like I still didn't feel I had a grasp on really where to start. And that's always why I come back to like, modifying games. Games are a great thing because having a visual representation of like I can make a calculator app in a console and it'll calculate for me. That's great. But something about like saying, even if it's a simple like move this cube from here to here, fascinating. You get to see that instant gratification, arguably instant depending on how long that takes to debug. But that was pretty great to kind of get into that point. And games really allowed me to do that because, like I said, I'm not really that comfortable, not that artistic, little shaky hands with the drawing sometimes. So that really helped kind of having that starting point. And that's actually where I ultimately ended up on the Unity engine, because Unity, something about it just really clicked in my head. It was CSharp is the language it typically uses. It kind of does its own things with some of its class files. So it's a little bit different, but it is C# language. Having gone through and learning a little bit of C++, that helped. Somewhat similar there, but it's like an object-oriented language, similar to Java, similar to Python a little bit. But that really kind of helped. Something about the editor, I think a lot of it was just that familiarity with the level editors and whatnot I had experienced before on some of these older games. It just kind of clicked in my head. It wasn't really until I was a YouTube tutorial I was going through, and there was just a square sprite. I just, little bit of code I threw in there, and it just, kept rotating after every update tick, as it's known. And something just clicked like there. It's like I made that happened. I'm sure like, every Hello World program, I've probably written Hello World like startup program in about 5 different languages at this point now. But it's kind of that same like Eureka moment, or like definitely a sense of pride. It's like I did that. I know it's just a spinning square, but it's my spinning square. And look, here's another one. And Unity has actually a lot of cool stuff there to make that repeatable and easy to use. We're going to go and kind of jump in that, kind of getting started there on Unity. So Unity engine is it's a free engine. There are some licensing restrictions if you go more commercial and whatnot, but for me, what I did, just kind of work on my own stuff. Really, I use Unity as a way to get into coding. I definitely love game design and whatnot, but I kind of wanted to not limit myself just to games, and kind of wanted to be able to go a little bit beyond that. And I kind of needed an environment for me to develop, have that kind of gratification, be able to see and kind of track, just like you'll have, for most languages, you'll like have console logs that'll print to see what's happening. It's kind of the same thing there. I have a visual representation of what my code's affecting and doing. And Unity really offered that for me. That was pretty great going into there. I would say like I didn't really get comfortable with coding until I began working with Unity. So I'm kind of gonna talk about like my process of getting into there. And if you'd like, you can definitely follow kind of that same process of getting into it. Unity, like I said, it's free. I will kind of go in here. So number one thing, Unity is free. That is fantastic, especially for learning to code when you're not sure kind of what you feel you want to do, what you want to work with, what language even. C# is pretty popular. It's a pretty popular language by Microsoft there, using a lot of things, mixing some .NET framework, and it's pretty versatile. So definitely a good jumping off point, but Unity being free, that really helped me. As I said, there was a time I didn't even have a computer, so I was a little tighter on funds, kind of still trying to learn, still wanted to, seek a little bit of like higher education in some capacity. And Unity being free, not having to have that buy-in, that definitely helped me get going there. Another thing that's also fantastic is when I finally did get a computer that was up and running, not the best, but it worked, turned on, no disk drive, little netbook, but did the trick. And the thing is, Unity is also very lightweight. It does have a little bit of a larger file size, but you can run it on a great number of devices, depending on what you kind of build or what you're throwing in there. You can really make that work. A lot of, not sure if this is an actual statistic that's accurate. It was, I believe, at the time when I read it, it's like a good 50% of mobile apps are made with Unity. Grain of salt with that number, but a significant number, I would safely say, is made with Unity, or was at the time, which is fantastic. Not even just games, but interfaces. There's actually native support for designing Android, or even I believe iOS. I haven't really tackled that because that's a whole thing with the Apple Store, but definitely doable. But basically, mobile development, very kind of built in, very good resources for actually designing for mobile, which was fantastic too. That was kind of maybe something I was thinking about, professionally, maybe getting into that front. But also on top of that, Unity also has, just because it's so lightweight, there's actually a way to build your project as a kind of a web project. So you can actually embed this project into a web page, which is fantastic. I've seen a lot of cool people do. I don't have examples on me. See if I can find it. Maybe if we do one of these again. There's people who've had their portfolios that are actually games that their characters will run around, hit a block, resume pops out. Really cool stuff. And Unity being lightweight kind of allows that to kind of happen. Really, really fantastic. Free, lightweight, really great there. It uses, as I said, the C# language. That definitely comes in handy because, as I said, my goal was to kind of get into coding and games, just because growing up with them, kind of games are my safe place kind of thing, at least for like the editors, being able to create in that kind of environment. Definitely kind of was kind of that, safe, secure place to kind of learn and try stuff. And C#, something clicked. I just really seemed to like the layout of it. Versatile, like I said, mixing some .NET framework with C# there, and it can be used on any number of devices. Fantastic tool. Definitely recommend. If there's, we'll go over. We're going to be talking a little bit about Unreal today as well, but Unity, very passionate about, as you could probably tell. So if you're kind of like on the fence about getting into coding, or how to start, I guess is a better way to put it, on where to start, Unity would be a great way to kind of get into it, kind of dip your toes in the water. There's also one thing that really makes Unity great is, as I work on code, you kind of, there's a concept in coding called dry, don't repeat yourself, and Unity can definitely help with that, because there are what's known as prefabs, which we'll go into a little bit of detail in a minute, but essentially those allow you to create an object. Let's say I'm making a character or an enemy or something like that, design it, make it pretty, see what I want, have the functionality I want. Unity actually has a drag and drop kind of interface where I can drag that, save it in a little content drawer, and then I can reuse that like time and time again, as many times as I want. And that's also something else that's great with Unity, is because back in the day when it came to making games, these used to be, $100,000, $1 million kind of productions, large teams. Now more than ever, it is easier for individual developers or smaller teams to get together, throw together a project. There's what's known as game jams, Ludum Dare, a couple different ones there. These are fantastic things where people have sometimes 24 hours, sometimes a weekend, 72 hours, and they're given a theme, and a concept or something like that, and they have 72 hours or 24 hours to make a game on there. A lot of times people don't finish, but you can kind of see their process. It's fascinating to watch. Some people will actually stream, and you can kind of see their thought process there. That was something I did when I was kind of getting into coding and Unity. Once I start, past that threshold, watching some professional developers actually develop in full speed, intimidating, but definitely something to be gained there. And who knows, 10 years from now, you could be that guy streaming. But that was fascinating to watch. And with Unity, you can really churn out a simple project pretty fast. We kind of go into that a little bit. Oh, and also, I have to say, great amount of resources available for Unity at this point. I forget how long it's been around, at least since 2015, so close to a decade, probably a little bit before that, further than that. So there's a mountain of documentation, even in the last 4 years or something like that with the latest versions. They've been pretty upgrading the versions every now and then, but for the most part, they're pretty close together. And documentation from like 2019, unless it's a specific editor instance or something like that, pretty relatable, pretty workable, because also a lot of this is going to be grounded in C#. So it'll be working with for loops, if statements, switch. I learned about switch statements using Unity too, and I use those as often as I can. Really fantastic as well. So much I kind of got exposed to through Unity, and really it was just like seeing the trying to figure out why my policeman character was spinning end over end and flying off, while my two characters that were charging into each other ended up flying so far away that the coordinates given ran out of numbers and started using letters. Just because it was such a long extended number that the C# started to break down there. Fantastic bugs and errors that came in really just from my mistakes and what I was doing there. But I had a concrete way to kind of track and see what was happening. What was fascinating about those guys flying off in Unity, I was able to pause. You're able to play in the editor, kind of like a sample snapshot of what the game's doing. I'm able to pause, go in. I can even change different kind of elements. We'll go in a little bit in the interface in a second here. I was able to track down and find where those guys were. Just being able to kind of do that, just that kind of control, and just being able to reuse assets, churn stuff out, the graphics and the I was drawing simple sprites and characters. Sometimes when in doubt, just make a cube and call it Bob. You're good. You'll get attached to Bob. But just being able to do that there, the graphics being kind of rendered for me, not having to worry about how the image is stored says it goes further away. The physics engine, I don't have to worry about gravity. There are definitely ways to modify and apply and use that in Unity, but a lot of that groundwork is done for you, and that's kind of what I was looking for throughout my whole process of working with level editors and modifying games. All that groundwork was kind of done for me, but I was curious on the code part, like how can I make X happen, that back end functionality, and that kind of really allowed me with Unity to do that. So getting started with Unity is pretty easy. It's free. Really, all you have to do is you just have to go to the website, download the launcher. You'll have to accept a license. There's basically a free license you can get. I don't think you get charged. You have to exceed $400,000 in commercial sales before you have to pay for an additional license, and even then, I think it's a flat fee per the amount of developers you have. So probably won't brush up against that right away. So definitely, if you're dabbling, easy to use, easy to do. Even if you have a couple people together, really, even if you get time, if you have a couple of friends that know how to code, or just have some time on their hands, just see if you can get together weekends, let's recreate Galaga or something like that, and just see if you can throw it together in Unity. Fantastic to do, a lot of fun. But it's really easy. Get back on track there. To get started with Unity, you can just navigate to the website. You'll probably create an account, and you're able to download the engine. And included in the engine, just a little bit on the what I have displayed here, there's actually a whole mess of templates, which are kind of pre-made, typically a level or two. different game types. There's even a Lego little platformer one that's really cute. A couple driving games, first-person shooters. Some good starter templates where you can kind of see bare bones assets, skeletons and not really detailed characters yet, but the functionality, the layouts there, you can kind of like see what they've done, go from there, and kind of then start implementing your own stuff there using some of the templates provided. There's more beyond this learning section there, but these learning ones have a couple extra things that help me get going. Some notes, hints in the comments, little blurbs that pop up in the editor that you can use and kind of follow along with. Really great resources. And kind of, going in there. Templates, just laying the groundwork for you. Great starting off point. And again, that's really kind of what I did going in with modding video games and different things alike and using those level editors. All that groundwork's done for me. There also is, and I personally try to stay away from this because I'm kind of teaching myself coding, but say you want to kind of like have something a little bit more polished and maybe use don't want to worry about like rigging up a 3D character model, which is a process, and you could teach a whole course on that using Blender or 3D Studio Max. Two great tools that are also free, by the way. A lot of takeaway from this, there's a lot of good free resources to get you started. And that's one thing I really love about this portion of game dev. But let's say you don't want to go through that process of rigging up that model, applying meshes, different kind of stuff there. Like me, it's like that's not really my cup of tea when it comes to that graphical aspect. But there is included a Unity asset store, and there's a mountain of free ones available of just some animation packs. Unity has a great animation system using keyframes. If you've ever had a chance to do that, any kind of animation software or whatnot, Flash Studio back in the day, if anyone ever used that, use keyframes, elements, you're able to actually apply scripts and have code run at different stages. Very powerful tool there. But say you don't want to tackle that, Unity includes an asset marketplace, which is a lot of free assets available there, but also people have like based their whole career on just designing these small little be it models. Maybe you do like the rigging and animation packs and whatnot. Whole plethora of just assets available, which are rigged models, whole levels, building packs, cars, models, different things like that. There's even different functionality like navigation meshes, so your unit can like travel everywhere you place a mesh down and not have to worry about coordinates and something like that. Wide range of things available to you there. Fantastic tool. Definitely recommend, at least if you have the time, have the space on your hard drive, just download it, see about playing around with it. Just something might click, might not, but definitely recommend trying that out. In the Tech Academy, I actually get to be the project lead on a few of our live projects. Two of my favorite to do are the game dev ones. I'm very passionate about games, so that's probably why. But this one's actually really fun. The Unity live project is a great time because we are recreating a classic arcade games in Unity. So this would be any of your old arcade cabinet games you'd find at a Pizza Hut or something like that there. Missile Command, Centipede, Frogger, a few different ones there. And it's interesting to do because obviously these were written on written for hardware that was almost 9 times out of 10 specific for that game. Like Mrs. Pac-Man or something like that there, being just like a slightly, apparently a little bit better than regular Pac-Man, but like a modified version of the Pac-Man hardware, which is pretty cool. So we're basically taking this old school kind of code or basically concepts, and really great because the students get to pick the game that they want to recreate. And it's almost like taking one of those coloring books where you have the small image and you're blowing it bigger. Same kind of concept there. You're going to take a pre-established, all the game design relative like structure is already kind of designed for you, so you're just translating that into the Unity engine, and it's challenging at times. There's definitely a lot of bugs that come into play, but that I feel that struggle is like what really kind of like helps development and makes you feel kind of secure as a developer, tracking down those bugs. And like I said, Unity I feel helps you visualize these bugs are happening. It's like, I could have a console log telling me the coordinates are going off or the ship's flying off in the direction, or I can just look and watch it spin off into space. Frustrating to see, but kind of fun to track down. It's almost like a puzzle. But that's been really fun to kind of lead those projects on there. We have a couple examples here. So first couple weeks, we're really just, building out, the basic layout, creating some player movement. If your guy can shoot laser beams, add the laser beams, get to move around. What's really cool though is we have pre-established kind of pre-established game design, Centipede, the Centipede will move a certain direction. Frogger has limited movements and logs and obstacles that come at you. That's already kind of set for you based on what we're recreating. So that's almost kind of like the template you're building. It's like, okay, how would I get this object to work? And I'm just updating what code would I write? So it kind of helps you kind of, because 9 times out of 10 is like, where do I start? That was for me, that was the biggest struggle. It's like, where do I start on this project? This I think really helps with our students going through the live project is they have that kind of like, maybe not narrow, and I know sometimes everyone wants to go off and do broad, but start with the basic. How we structure live projects is we have what's called user stories. It's like, what's story one? Story one is the basic level. Story two, that's the player movement. Story three, that's the enemy, AI, the logic, and all that kind of stuff there. And just by taking in those bite-sized pieces, that can really help you tackle a larger project. And it also gives you a good reference point to fall back on. If story 3 didn't work out, you have story 2. I have a little section on that that will definitely help kind of elaborate more. But this is honestly probably one of my favorite projects to run. The students get to pick a game that they probably are passionate about, probably know, and just be able to recreate it there and not be fully on their own just because they have all that design elements kind of laid out for them. Even like me, like I'm not really that big on like graphics and design and stuff like that. But I recreated like a Missile Command game there. And in Unity, I really just, had a bunch of different spheres, squares, different cubes kind of lined up. And I was able to, throw together the functionality. Looked all right. Had a lighting engine flown in or thrown in there. Materials were kind of already laid out for me, and I had, it looking like it needed. But just using primitive shapes and everything like that, because again, like my core desire was the functionality and wanted to get that built. And Unity definitely allowed me to do that because I'll handle the rest. You do the code. And even then, there's a mountain of resources that really get you started. There's a tutorial video we have in my resources for the Unity Live project. It's 5 ways to move an object in Unity. Mountains of resources, a few good YouTubers out there. There's one named Bracky's, not currently active, but great resource, really good teacher. I used him a lot when I was learning to tackle Unity and C#. So right here on the screen, I have a couple. This is the first week we had the live project going. I have Centipede going on the left, Frogger on the right. As you can see, is just a little tiny capsule. That's actually a 3D object with a camera pointing down. It was really cool. I was really proud of how these turned out, and you can actually see the finished product. This is towards the end of that 2-week kind of sprint, we call them. All the logic, I don't have them animated here, but all the logic was fine. The Centipede game on the left almost perfectly matched the pathfinding of the Centipede there. Really great job on that there. The student on right with the Frogger game really had a lot of issues getting the enemy, the cars move left to right and like collide properly and all these different things there. But they really nailed that fixed amount of movement as Frogger goes up there, for those familiar with there. And I feel just having that kind of like game design set for them, that really helped as they were kind of building that out. Was really great. That's probably one of my favorite things too, also with this project, is seeing, that week one, kind of like that core functionality. And just by the end of that, that second Friday, we're done with the sprints. We finished, essentially the project there, and just seeing how far it's come is wonderful to see as an instructor, as the lead there. And for the students too, love hearing the eureka moments. I was like, I get it. Fantastic. And I've seen a lot of people, had one of my students recently say, it's like, went through because in the course we teach you a lot of the C# basics, kind of go through there, a few assignments here and there, and they said they got through the course, felt at the end of the course that they were afraid they didn't know anything. They felt it's like they just completed assignments, didn't know. But once they actually went on to the Unity portion of it, where we're actually putting it all together, it all clicked. And they said they felt more confident now, and this is definitely a career they would like to pursue because of that. And that was honestly one of the best things I could read. So definite highlight of my time at Tech Academy is leading this project here. Make sure I'm doing good on time. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna go on. So the next project, so during the game dev bootcamp, we actually get a lead 2. We're gonna go into the Unreal Engine. Now the Unreal Engine, whole different beast there, but one of my favorite things in the world, Unreal is free. Unreal is actually made by the Epic Games. Some of you might know from such classics as Fortnite or Hogwarts Legacy. Even the old Unreal Tournament back in the day. Very powerful engine. It's free. They do have similar kind of licensing structure to Unity. Similar licensing structure to Unity there. Probably won't go into that there. You can definitely follow along on the site. For solo developer, really just getting into it, definitely don't have to worry about that at that point, especially if you're just by yourself kind of tinkering with it. Unreal is powerful. It is kind of, I would say, probably the front runner or one of the front runners for like graphics capabilities in games, other than some in-house engine thrown together by the company. It's a very powerful tool. Hogwarts Legacy just came out. Resident Evil 8, a few different ones there. Those are the two that come to mind. Very powerful, almost photorealistic, and the animation engine and everything. Fantastic engine to work with. Our students actually get to work with this too on a live project, and we'll go into that in a little second. It's scalable too, so it's a very powerful engine, but you can also make lower end stuff too, or lower end maybe not the right word, but stuff that you can basically throw onto different sites and the like. And some mobile games too are actually made in Unreal. So it's scalable to your needs and your project as well. But a lot of people, especially the Unreal 5, that's come out recently, has been kind of just pushing the envelope on graphic design. And then, so we'll just go a little bit further in. It uses the C++ language and also blueprints, which are kind of similar to the prefab structure of Unity, where you can almost drag and drop, kind of build it out there. There's also you can do the whole thing in C++, but you can also use visual scripting, which is actually something nifty. I myself am still kind of getting my head wrapped around it. We'll go into that a little bit details, but it definitely can help for people who maybe aren't more familiar with code and want to kind of get into it. This could also be a good starting point because of that. We'll go into that in a second there. But also there is access to the Quixel Megascan assets, which I know at least Resident Evil 8 definitely used. And what that is, it's a library of, I want to say, like 16,000 different textures and objects and different kind of assets that were scanned and photorealistic kind of quality, kind of stretched out. And I think I have, we'll jump back to visual scripting in a second. So this is actually Quixel Megascans. And these are just a whole library available to you in the Unreal Engine. They actually partnered with Unreal to actually give you access to these. And these are available to you while working with the Unreal Engine. Our students are able to use it. And you can just see from some of these examples, we have a wide range from old pickaxes to donuts, huge amount of different textures, even beyond just like, textures and objects. They have more available, but this is kind of one of the main takeaways. So like me, if you're designing a game and you don't want to have to render a desk or an office chair, that would take weeks, Quixel's got you covered, which is fantastic news, especially for the live project leading. I don't have to worry about spending an hour making sure my chair legs are all the same length. Quixel's got me covered. But to jump back here real quick on visual scripting, we're just going to go in a little detail. So this is a little gnarly for me to kind of jump into, at least it was at first. definitely played around with it more for about year, half a year now, so it kind of get my head around it. But this is pretty cool. So this is essentially code, but broken up into teeny tiny little blocks, and then you're essentially just wiring these blocks to each other. So you, in this example, this is just a simple kind of like script to. There's a power up, and it just adds a simple rotation element as seconds tick off on the clock. Very cool. And this is just a quick example of kind of what's available. And this, I've had some students that had a little bit of trouble actually like writing the code, especially by this point, they've gone through the Unity project and they might have struggled with a little bit of scripting. But when they come here to the elements, they just get it like instantly. And it's maybe it's something about like the approach, or just maybe that visual representation, similar to how I enjoyed Unity, being able to have that graphic representation of kind of what's going on. But this is kind of a cool asset that's available. This is going to be throughout any Unreal project you work on. You can still work with C++, that straight lines of code, do a mix of both. But a good chunk of what you work on and a lot of the learning templates are going to be actually using visual scripting, which is kind of a fantastic kind of thing I've seen. I've seen a couple other examples with Scratch by MIT and a couple other different code blocks. Those are going to be more for kind of getting kids into coding a bit, which we have time I might go into a little bit. But this can definitely help too if you're a little bit more of a visual learner, want to be able to see kind of what's happening and where the flow of the program is actually going with the actual wires you can see here. But yeah, it's something to definitely play around with the Unreal Engine. Again, free, worth downloading. Bit larger than Unity, so be ready for that. I think it's about 40 gigabytes of file size. So again, if you have the capacity on your computer, I say go for it. At least play around with a couple of templates. You might find something you like there. So this is the results of one of my students doing the Unreal Live project. This was all made by them using just a lot of time and effort, Quixel mega scans, and a couple different. The water was generated by the editor, and the landscape a little bit as well. But all the rock placements, the textures, the layout, even that building in the back was actually hand sculpted with them using a couple of the tools like Cube Grid. A lot of great tools are available in Unreal. We'll probably go into a little bit more too with Unreal. There's even that new Matrix movie that came out. Actually, you can download the demo of the cityscape that was made in Unreal 5 from the Epic Game Store. You can actually download it and play around with that too. Fantastic. Definitely, I'd say Unreal kind of leans more towards the cutting edge graphics and that kind of scope of it, but doesn't require a huge amount just because those textures are already supplied for you, and you can kind of work with them and retool them and mix them together, which is a lot of cool. You can, using that visual scripting, actually mesh a couple different textures together. The student actually that did this one implemented something called RVT, which is a little gnarly to set up, but they came in the project ready for it, which is pretty great. It's real-time virtual textures, and that just gets the an object to distort and kind of apply the texture as it goes in and out. Really fascinating. I could probably talk for a while just on Unreal itself, but just for brevity's sake, we'll keep it moving there. But fantastic. Really proud of the student too. They really knocked it out of the park in 2 weeks here. They were able to create this beautiful vista, which is pretty impressive. So now we're going to go into kind of touch base on kind of everything we just kind of went over, and my process for learning. And what I would like to recommend is to please break your code. And what I mean by that is working off these templates, working off these engines. A lot of the ways I figured out, like, because I can follow a tutorial and get some, I could copy and paste from something that generates it and throw it in there, and it'll work, do what's great, but I won't really know how it works, or maybe a rough idea. But I feel when you break your code, you'll see, especially with game engines and whatnot, you'll see visibly what's going on and what's wrong, and that can really help there. And this even goes beyond game design. This is kind of my philosophy as well. And there's a couple stipulations with this, call out, to break your code. Start with the templates. That's going to be, those learning templates, available from Unity and Unreal. Unreal, I didn't listen there, but they do have plenty of templates available to kind of work off as well. But this will give you that good starting point and also a good fallback point if everything goes, terrible. But yeah, work off those templates. They'll give you a good foundation to kind of play around with, tweak values, increase the speed value, see why you shouldn't do that in a certain instance, or maybe you should, depending on the game you're designing. But yeah, start with those templates. That's a great place to start. If you're not already, when working with code, I highly recommend, and there's a few different versions available, or version control software available. I'm a big fan of GitHub Desktop. The pretty, most of you, I'd say, probably have a GitHub set up, or at least aware of what it is. GitHub Desktop is basically just an interface linking your computer and that, and kind of communicating with each other. It's really fantastic because it will kind of do an all or nothing, and you can set it up to ignore different files and whatnot, but pretty much we'll do an all or nothing, track everything in a specific folder or repository. Any changes you make, any saves, any new kind of games added there, you're able to then push to GitHub, pull it, all this different wonderful stuff to help you, one, protect yourself from losing code. And also it gives you like a history of your changes. So you can see what you did, 5 pushes ago, 5 changes ago, what happened, what files changed. It'll track and tell you that. Pretty fantastic tool. Using GitHub and really any kind of version control though, this right here, and this is any language, any code, save and commit often. I highly recommend it. Once you get something working, the way it's kind of like saving in a video game, it's kind of the same thing there. If I do something complicated, it's like, would I be annoyed doing this again? Or would I be able to? Would I struggle with this again? If so, save. And that's, save and then commit. And GitHub, we just, for those that don't know, it's basically you're just committing is just basically, setting it to your local repository's history, and then you can push that online, and that's got a backup. So if you have that there, that's now not just something that's backed up, but you can also fall back to if something on your current version is not working. Or if, let's say it's like, 3 versions ago, I really had this cool interface down, and then I mess it up. Maybe I'll go back there, and you can either, revert back. Just really great kind of software to leverage in development, be it code, games, anything like that. But the more often you commit, the more of those kind of like jump back points, butterfly effect with Ben or movie reference, but basically you have all those points to jump back to kind of as you save and commit. So I highly recommend definitely use GitHub, use branches. If you're trying something weird that might not work, make a branch, and then if it goes wrong, you still have your main branch. That's fine. Definitely recommend looking those up if you're unfamiliar with that. But yeah, with development, highly recommend these tools. Commit often, save your work always. That can definitely help. I'm guilty of not, so not throwing shade on anyone, but yeah, definitely something I want to be better with as well. But definitely lean on these things. These will really help both with game design, but also getting into coding in general. I'd probably do a whole talk on just breaking your code and how to effectively track where it's breaking and stuff like that there. But just, good food for thought at this point. Quick bit, just because we're running a little fast and I want to get some questions in there. I just had a couple things about getting kids into code. I have a 10-year-old, and these are a couple things I did to kind of get him there. He has a couple different things he's done through his school as well. But one of the first things I did to kind of get him like interested in the concept of code, add their name to a web page. If you just like either make an HTML file, or you can right click inspect on the page and just change an H1 element somewhere and just add their name. Their name is like one of the first things they learn in the world. So they're, they know it, they're associated with it, they love it. So that is a kind of a way to kind of trick them to get invested, or kind of guide them to be invested, I guess I'll say. My son got a kick out of that, adding his name to YouTube. That was a lot of fun. He wants to be a YouTuber. I have to deal with that at some point. But yeah, add their name to a web page. That's great. There's Scratch, which is kind of like the visual scripting code blocks developed by MIT to teach 6-year-olds how to code. So that'd be a good entry point too if you kind of want to start them young on kind of coding and developing. There is Minecraft Education Edition. Most kids I interact with play Minecraft or are obsessed with it at some point. So this is definitely kind of a way to kind of teach and guide, typically on a kind of mediated kind of path, so they're not just running off and destroying things. But Minecraft has a lot of cool, interesting things with logic gates, wiring. People have made computers and 3D printers in game. Really fun to see, kind of like what a computer would look like on a ground level there. And then also using the Unity engine, what I would do is I would have those prefabs set up, had a lot of the code kind of made for him, and just set him loose on a level. Just being able to drag and drop, teach him that. Have a couple stuff where you can just check different boxes, show him there. Trying to repeat the cycle there with my son as to the same kind of path I took with those level editors and whatnot, and getting into typing with games and whatnot. I remember he was playing one game, and he reads, but like I kind of tried to get him to read more books and less comic books, Dogman, and all that kind of stuff. Great books, but try to get more. But he was playing a game, and he looked at some email log or something. It's like, Daddy, I'm reading the lore. And I'm like, yeah, that's great moment. So games can definitely be a tool to kind of educational tool as well. So that's kind of the boilerplate version of the kind of tech talk here. And I just have a couple of quick blurbs, and then we can jump to Q&A if we got time. These are just a couple of things I thought was fascinating about games pushing tech forward in history. There's a guy, Ed Log, who's responsible for, I believe, Centipede, Gauntlet, a lot of old classic game engines, having to work with an engineer to actually design hardware to render. If you ever played Gauntlet, there's 1,000 possible characters on screen of just the same object over and over, but being able to render that was pretty cool. In 1995, estimated Doom, the game, was installed on more devices than Windows 95, which is pretty impressive. Bill Gates actually had a PSA about playing in the next Doom tournament, and just it was a killer app for the era, which is pretty fascinating as well. I kind of mentioned it earlier, the being used in film and gaming. Matrix, Resurrections, and UE5. You can download that demo, which I still think is pretty cool. And then also, this kind of goes into kind of cryptocurrency mining and whatnot as well. But GPUs, graphic processing units, all these powerful video cards I use for gaming and whatnot are now being used for cryptocurrency, all that noise. Basically leveraging the GPUs for logic calculations. And there's a game definitely worth checking out, even if you just look at a video of it's like Ultimate Epic Battle Simulator 2 with a name like that. You got to check it out. But being able to leverage the GPU for logic calculations and stuff, rendering, I think it's 16 million possible units on screen, all independent actors in the Unity engine, using unique lighting, texture effects, animations, and just basically like pathfinding. Fascinating to see. But yeah, gaming I feel can be a great educational tool, and I feel it is a driving force in technology kind of going forward, and probably will keep doing that to this day. And at that note, I think we'll go over to Q&A.
All right, thank you so much, Wes. That was a lot of informative information. It looks like there are some questions in the chat. Alex has been helping out to answer them, but if you want to elaborate on any, go ahead.
Yeah,
let's see.
Let's start with Sherry. The mod tools would be Bethesda games. A lot of times will have their creation kits, both for Fallout and their Elder Scrolls games. That's kind of what's going on there. Different editors are available for different games. Typically on the website, they'll announce like, we have mod tools available here or blank, kind of follow the links there. But Bethesda is pretty great on most of their games, including that. Miss Flappy Bird as well. Pitfall. Oh yeah, definitely. Pitfall is one of the games that can be made there. Did you? Oh, that's Alex. Thank you, Alex. Brackeys is the greatest. Yes, definitely. Did you do? Difference between for David. Difference between Unity and Unreal. Different companies, obviously, but really just C#, which the Unity engine does have C++ in it as well. That's kind of more the nitty gritty, but most of what you'll be interacting with will be C#. Unreal, I'd say one of the main things for me that I run into, just kind of give a quick answer there, is Unreal uses kind of like skeleton models for animation rigging and kind of stuff there. Unity does not. It can, but Unity you can actually make you can basically make everything you need to animate in Unreal, kind of. But Unity, you can make pretty much everything you need in Unity. Maybe with a if you're doing 2D game, a text editor or a graphics editor, Paint.net, something like that, or GIMP Studio if you get a chance to use it. But yeah, that's kind of one of the main differences I encounter. That and Unreal, I feel, is more graphics focused. Let's see if I agree as well, Casey. I don't have for Bryce. I don't have a recommended Unreal source. A lot of what I do is their documentation for tutorial series. Just from the actual website, you can make sure we're using Unreal 5, at least for our instance. You can switch the editor version there. From there, though, there are a lot of forum posts on the Unreal website where you can kind of dive off and kind of see people kind of then branch off into other different YouTubers. I haven't found one, I would say, as good as Bracky's, at least that I'm comfortable with. Definitely out there, I'm sure. But Bracky's was just just kind of clicked in my head. Good explanation, a lot of good examples. Kind of a dork, loved that too. That kind of helped as well. And I think that's could have sent you a link to probably definitely Bryce, I could probably check that out. Not sure I could take a crack at it, let's say that. So yeah, that's kind of, I think I got everyone in the chat. If anyone else has any other questions, though, definitely go for it, though.
Looks like Nicholas got a question. Are past student life projects open to public? Oh, so the life projects we've had previously.
That might be, I couldn't say offhand because that'd be kind of more the because it's all hosted on our we use Azure DevOps when going through. That I'm not sure on, unless Regina, you got any knowledge on
I was gonna say, I think some of the students, if you actually look up some of our students on LinkedIn, some of them do link it on their GitHub or their portfolio website, so maybe you can check it out on there.
And it should be relatively free to share because one of the stipulations is using open license assets and everything like that. So you should be good on that front. Did you good way to contact? Oh, one second. I'll give you a good way to contact. Let me get, now that I'm not doing the screen share, I can get my LinkedIn.
Also, while you're getting that, so as you guys know, we are recording this talk and I'm going to post it later today on our YouTube channel. And here is a link where you can watch this back and all of our previous talks. We don't have any tech talk for next week. We will have one after that, so in 2 Fridays. Just look out for my email, and I'll send you all the details about that one. Any other questions? Oh, looks like Casey's got a question. When you started developing games, did you want to do it professionally, or were you guided into it?
I feel like every child, I wanted to make my own game when I got into that front. When I kind of got older, I wanted to not limit myself just to games, and I kind of do it more as like kind of a passion project on the side. That being said, I'm always kind of working on it. A lot of times what I work on is kind of like sandbox environments or little kind of like demos of concepts. I'm trying to get right now I'm trying to play around with a kind of a finite state machine, which is a lot of fun, trying to get just AI to react to different stimuli at different points. So I would say, yeah, definitely I wanted to go professionally as a kid. From that point, I kind of wanted to open myself up more as a developer in full versus just game design. That being said, still working on side projects on the side. So if I make the next, Minecraft 2 with cubes or not cubes, it's already got cubes, darn. Stardew 2 or something like that, definitely, that is still the dream, I would say. But yeah, definitely kind of wanted to branch out more into full on development, which even is beyond Unity, because I can still fall back on game design, because there's whole games made in HTML5. Was pretty cool. There's one that I don't have a link anymore, but it was really cool. The guy just wanted to learn HTML5 and just made the whole game. It refreshed the page like every turn or something like that. It was pretty simple, but really awesome game. It's pretty popular for a while. But JavaScript is also, like, people have browser-based games and whatnot as well. So definitely, I would say, like, still the dream, and was kind of my goal as a kid. But I definitely kind of broadened my horizons, try to see if I could go any direction, see what door opens.
All right, I don't think there are any questions left, but if something comes up, don't hesitate. You can definitely reach out to us on LinkedIn. But this is pretty much the end of our tech talk. Thank you so much, Wes, and thank you everyone else for joining. I hope you guys enjoy your Friday and happy weekend, and I'll see you guys on the 30th. Bye, guys.
Bye.